Welcome, welcome. Man, it's been a long time since I've done an episode for the Life Maximizer, but you're kickstarting the conversations again, so I'm excited to talk to you.
Hey,
Um, yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
happy to talk. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for the invite.
You
That's
are
don't take it for granted.
very, very welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I am Donnie Hill. I'm the founder of Life Maximizer, which is a coaching and consulting company. I'm happy to go into more detail about that later. But for now, today's guest is going to be Dr. Isaac Carter. So before we dive into the magic that is your work,
Okay. Wow.
tell people who you are and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, my name's Isaac Carter. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. Um, that's an important place, and we'll probably come back to it later in conversation in terms of how I move in the world and what things and projects I'm working on. Uh, Midwest kid, went around for a while, did higher education for a long bit, and did organizing for a little shorter bit. And about 6 years ago, I decided that I was unsatisfied with all those things and started coaching imperative and started as a coach. And from there, the desire for coaching was like really, really important to me because I kind of did that role informally for a lot of people and then sort of formally for a lot of my younger professionals. And I just say, well, I love that work. I love watching people line up their wishes and dreams and pursue them and get to that other side and they see that joy and be a part of that process is wonderful. But in the coaching world, I do emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, other things, and nothing ever really quite fit exactly how I wanted. And so Black emotional intelligence became my goal in terms of I wanted to create a framework for human being and leadership that was universal to anybody in the globe, but centered on Afrocentric wisdoms.
Yeah, I remember when we had our conversation a couple of months ago, and you shared some of your music with me. It was like, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know how he found his way into my world, but I'm here for it. And I'm excited that people are gonna learn a little bit more about you and what you're doing with Black EQ. Um,
Appreciate that.
yeah, so tell us a little bit about why St. Louis is kind of a foundational piece to how you move and operate in the
Mhm.
world.
Yeah, where I live in St. Louis, where I grew up in St. Louis, the north side, and like many Midwest cities, Detroit, Cleveland, just pick a place. We had a divide in our community, the Delmar divide. And one of the things about divides is that, you know, when you make it through or make it out of that area, people are proud of you for making it. But what I think gets lost is the depth within that divide. And for me, that depth was being around strong, um, strong-minded, caring, loving, but accountable, accountable people who helped invested into me to keep me going in the right directions and help me not over just overcome the situation of the area of North St. Louis. It's one of the most violent, you know, quote unquote violent places in the United States. We're always in the top 10, which is not something to be happy about. Um, but it I wouldn't have come up with Black EQ if I wasn't immersed in the Black community.
Yeah.
And despite lower economic situations, the neighborhood is not a monolith. There were teachers, there were doctors, there were lawyers also in the community. And all those people, I got a chance to listen and learn and watch and observe. And so for me, there are many stories in the tale of how I came to Black EQ, but definitely my mom, my dad, my grandparents, my great grandparents are a key part of that story.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I'm from Mobile, Alabama, and currently live in Los Angeles. And it
Oh
must have
wow.
been 2 months ago when I was getting to the desk at the airport, and the attendant, she was like, "Oh, you're going to Mobile. Ooh, you're going to Mobile. Y'all are always on first 48." Ooh.
Wow.
So, so yeah, there's definitely still a divide here in Mobile.
Hmm.
I'm visiting now and like other cities. Um, and like you, my parents grew up in the 70s and the 80s, or sorry, the 60s and the 70s,
Hmm.
and saw kind of the civil rights movement and uh, everything that came with that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when I listen to you and I think about my own family and some of the mentors I've had in my community, like I think about the warmth and the softness and the
Hmm.
intelligence that they bring to the conversations
Yeah.
and to their interactions with me. And so I'm excited to dive into kind of some of the nuances of Black EQ and what the
Yeah.
distinctions are between kind of regular EQs that
Hmm.
you hear about and then your work around Black EQ. So can you tell people a little bit about the
Yeah.
differences?
Yeah. Yeah. And to tell it, I often use Harriet Tubman. So first, when we talk about Daniel Goleman and looking at EQ and and his observations and his work is, it stands alone. It's by itself. It is what it is. The idea of being have the self-awareness and self-regulation, social awareness, relationship management, empathy. Those are all important, and he has made important contributions. So one thing about Black EQ, we're not in competition with anybody. We're just Black EQ. And so, but as I gotten older and got into coaching, and specifically because I let my clients know I'm an Afrocentric coach, and that part of that is letting them know that I will use Afrocentric concepts in our coaching, which may be foreign to you, but they are just the tools I choose to use. There are other tools you can use. I just choose to use those. And so when you think about those things that I named in terms of self-regulation, awareness, et cetera, I think about Harriet Tubman. And I think about this Negro woman that's enslaved, that's going to get freedom. She had to have some awareness. She had to have some self-regulation.
Yep, yep,
She had to have some relationship management. And she had to have some empathy.
yep, yep.
And so, not that Goldman's observations were incorrect, but you can point to people in the Black diaspora, especially if you look at Black people, how we came to this country, well, when it wasn't a country, and how we navigated enslavement to Black power to civil rights, and still we're dealing with things today. There is a beauty and grace in that is undescribable. And so I started to say, well, where did Harriet Tubman get her ideas from? And I started thinking about where did Frederick Douglass, who also was enslaved and later became a confidant friend of the president, Abraham Lincoln. What is Sojourner Truth? You can go on and on. And so part of that for me made me say, what is it that Black people are bringing from Africa with them that's helping them navigate this terrain that we're in, that this burgeoning United States of America?
Yeah.
And so, as a person who's a Black study professor, and psychology major, counselor by nature, my mom is a psychologist. Uh, my dad's a clinical social worker and worked in juvenile. So, like, I was around people who talked about the helping profession, but I felt nobody gave an origin story that was different. And so for me, Black EQ was about an origin story, about where our resilience and our attention, our aesthetics, our grace, our style, our flavor, our flow, where did it come from? In a sense, in terms of this concept around leadership, coaching, and helping people. And then looking at what could we take from Africa, because people have taken so much from Africa, you know, resource wise, people
Yep.
wise. Africa's great on that sense. But as soon as you say something that's Afrocentric or you label something Black, it can become uncomfortable for people.
Yeah.
And so calling it Black EQ was very intentional because I wanted to be able to name where it is, where it's from, and what it's about. And calling it that does. But the other part does, it expands the opportunity for conversations about what Black is in a diasporic sense, as it's diaspora. And how can we now learn from the diaspora? And when we think about other traditions, which we could talk about later, we have no problem borrowing from people's culture and using it the way we want to use it. And I'm just borrowing from my own culture and using my own people's tools, from ancient Kemet to West African belief systems to South Africa, like the Khan. Why not take that history and that knowledge and put it into place in the temporary world? And I think there's plenty of examples of people using it, even though they might not call it Black EQ.
Yeah. I don't know if this is true for you, but I know it's a conversation in the Black diaspora, just not across the whole Black
Mm-hmm.
diaspora, where sometimes Black Americans, they want to go back to Africa and
Mm-hmm.
because they want to connect to the continent and roots
Mm-hmm.
and the culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you talk to some Black people who are like, no, I'm American. This is where I want to be. This is what I like. Um, and when I think about some of the friends or colleagues who are African, Nigerian,
Mm-hmm.
Ethiopian, etc. Um, and I think about their connection
Mm-hmm.
to to themselves and their connection to the culture. It seems like there is more wholeness, or oftentimes more wholeness within them and their perception of themselves and
Mm-hmm.
the way they move and interact with the world.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas um, here in America, sometimes they don't feel like uh, there's a there are people who have that same kind of connection to their wholeness. And so they're looking for it, or they're
Mm-hmm.
wanting it, or they're trying to cultivate it, or they're doing their genealogy kind of
Yeah.
the charts and stuff. Um, but as you were talking about kind of the origin story, what immediately kept coming to mind was, oh man, this is another one of those pieces to wholeness
Mm-hmm.
that we can hold on to and use
Yeah.
as this is ours. This is how we operate. This is how we think. This is how we move through the world. Um, it's beautiful, it's bold, it's got
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
some flavor and some
Yeah.
some
Definitely.
swag and some essence to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I love that your your work is helping bring kind of that medicine or another missing piece that some people are looking for, and others are like, yeah, this just allows me to be even more me, or helps me be even more me,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
gives language
Yeah.
to how I think and why I operate the way I do and how I move through the world. So I'm I'm excited to see how this ends up kind of infiltrating
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Communities, because it's cool. It's very, very cool.
I would liken it, and as a young person who grew up in the '80s listening to hip hop when it first came out, I often refer to Black EQ as a remix and a reclamation project. So it is taking what we had and remixing it to this contemporary society, and then hopefully it's bringing back some wisdom that has been lost into our current moment, so we could think about things differently. Like it's interesting that like people will get daily devotions, or they might get these inspiration cards, and you get these wonderful messages. I mean, nothing wrong with them, but like, why couldn't they be Adinkra symbols with messages? And as that philosophy in West Africa, why wouldn't that be something that people could also benefit from as they try to navigate life? Why couldn't you use, some of the principles that when the people in South Africa were um, fighting against oppression, how to use music and song as part of it? their strategy, and they implemented that. And so there's such a richness in the continent, and it's so vast. I feel like I'm only touching the surface right now. I'm sure as I have more conversations and more dialogues and more interactions with people, it'll grow more. And I want to make sure like we bring this into the diaspora in multilingual ways. I want this to be this BLKEQ is a global project. It's not a United States project. We're not here to critique a particular position in America, but I do critique everything in my music because the
Yep.
music is part of the curriculum. But in the practice of BLKEQ, it's about love. I mean, it's about emotional sovereignty, compassionate courage, cultural mastery, and radical love, and that's the grounding of it. And those things are things you have to carry with you wherever you go. But we're trying to build something that there were remnants of still in Africa, but yet needs to be updated and new in this context. And then how are we going to weave in the voices, not only just from the United States of people feeling wholeness, but black people in Europe, or black people in the Caribbean, or black people in Canada, or black people in Latin America. Like there's so much connection to our cultures, and I think this is just a burgeoning project that I imagine over my lifetime, which I expect to do over my lifetime, is to grow it, for the rest of my life and see what happens.
Yeah. I think you shared one of your frameworks with me when we talked a couple of months ago, and I don't remember if there were four or five components. There was like a heal set or
Oh yeah,
something
yeah,
other
yeah,
set. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Will you
yeah,
talk a little bit about that?
yeah, yeah. So I kind of already did the sacred virtues, those
Mhm.
emotional sovereignty. Those is my I call those sacred virtues. And because the word sacred to me, I wanted to connect it to the spirit and to the spirit of the Adinkra symbol Jiname, like means the presence of omnipresence of God. Like so, this thing is a sacred thing. It's not a me thing. This is a we thing. And so, for the practices, mindset first, because in terms of we're familiar with that mindset, and we can learn from our mindset. Um, Skill set. What are the tools that you need to be able to move in the world? And for me, a lot of these things that we do in what people used to call DEI work, or whatever people are using it to do different things, different populations. I don't really care about the labels, but the idea that leadership is a skill, facilitation is a skill, conflict management is a skill, and being able to use those skills in places is important for us, not only our survival, but for help people to thrive. And as coaches, it's important to make sure you help our clients see and enhance their skill sets. But then we now get to the emotional part. We got a feel set, and we start to understand the deepening of our understanding of ourselves through emotions. And one thing BLKEQ makes us a distinction is that emotions are collectively experienced. So if something happened to you, Donnie, and I see it on TV, I'm going to have an experience. I'm going to say the same experience as you, but I'm going to have an experience. And then my sister might call me. You see what happened to Donnie? And then a friend might say, "You see the article about God dying?" Like that's how we live in this world. So it's a different kind of energy and knowledge. But you know, the last part in terms of heal set is it gets to the point of okay, we're dealing with this world. We're going back and forth and negotiating all these different things. We're finding our place, and then we're finding places where obstacles and barriers are. That is part of a trauma experience. And we oftentimes, I think, as a community, don't take full account of what the impact of said trauma and how it impacts how we move in the world. And so Hill set for me was an essential because we need to have a Hill set, a set of activities. And the one thing that I think as BLKEQ distinguishes itself in this conversation is that emotions are collective. Healing should also be collective. So yeah, we can go do our yoga, we can do our meditation, and do those things. But there's research and there's experience that say when we do those things together, they become more amplified.
Yep.
And the thing with BLKEQ is I want to help people find a space, and I call it pendulation in terms of heal set is the pendulum point where we get into the point where we're a community and we're healing together. As we know, we're going to swing back out to this crazy world, have to deal with all the stuff we're going to deal with. but no, you can get to come back home and get all that medicine and all that food and all that good cooking and all those great messages and affirmation to say, okay, I'm prepared now to go back out. And I think things that I want that I'm building for Black EQ is how do we make spaces for congregation? How do we make spaces for conversation? But how do we make spaces for our future desires and help each other with our healing so we can meet those goals and achieve those dreams?
You were talking about this. The purpose of this is reclamation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so much of um, the conversations that I have with leaders is around, restoration and recovery, and what does that actually mean for people? I think when people think about recovery, they're thinking about lounging on the beach, lounging on the sofa, watching Netflix, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what I really mean by recovery falls within that feel set and the heal set,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know about you, but my mom and dad weren't talking to me a whole lot about emotions and feeling. It was like, you don't make a fool of me inside of this store. Don't ask for nothing. Don't touch nothing. And don't don't have a fit, right? And so you just learn to kind of hold everything in and clam up and bottle it up. And so everything is I'm fine, or let me figure it out so I don't get my behind beat when I get home. And then you end up growing up just
Mm-hmm.
missing out on feeling all of these normal, regular human emotions. And I would say just in the past 6 or 7 years, I have really been diving into nervous system education and nervous system healing and
Mm-hmm.
helping facilitate conversations and education around that, and especially for Black and Brown people,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't have many spaces to get that education, and our
Yeah.
family's probably not going to teach us to it. There's still stigma around going to a therapist. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how do we work with that part of ourselves that are naturally a part of every human being
Mm-hmm.
and have some real practical things and practical language that people can understand and say, "Oh, I know what that means." That they don't, most people don't know what sympathetic and parasympathetic is. They're like, "I don't care." Like, what does that mean? It means you just got angry because somebody cut you off in the traffic. That's
Mm-hmm.
active. That's sympathetic. They're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I get that." Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, so much of I think what it sounds like you're doing with Black EQ is creating the spaces, but also doing the translation work for
Mm-hmm.
Black people so that they can do the restoration and the reclamation and
Mm-hmm.
the recovery, and then be like, all right, I'm cool, I'm centered, I'm grounded today. I know I need to go back out and deal with the foolishness that is
Yeah.
around us right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at least now I have some tools to deal with the foolishness.
Exactly.
But at some point, I'm gonna need to retreat and come back
Mm-hmm.
and stay in my little cocoon, and then I'll
Mm-hmm.
go back out. Right. So I love that you are wanting to find ways and language for us to continue to navigate our experiences and our existence and the world in a way that works for us, that
Mm-hmm.
cultivates some level of like safety and groundedness, and also um, that is joyful. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I talk to Black people, sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk to you about the struggle. Someday, someday, I want to talk to you about something joyful. Like, tell me what's
Yes.
good, what's working well in your life. And some really embrace it and they lean into it, and you just see them light up. And some like, man, you talking to me like an alien. Like there is no good stuff happening. You see what's happening across the country. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I know. And your Blackness isn't going away. So we got to figure out we got to figure out some different solutions.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that one of the things, like, so on my website, There is there's a button in the footer that calls a BLKEQ reset. And then you click the button, it'll say, it prompts you to say, hey, what's going on right now? You're experiencing something. Please describe it. It'll ask you the location. And then it gets to the next part, naming feelings. So to your point about us as a people having a language, most people don't have a language to name the 8 basic emotions, let alone the hundreds that you can start breaking down into if you use
Yeah.
a emotion wheel. And, and a lot of people don't understand that emotions are compound. That's rarely just one emotion you're experiencing. You're experiencing multiple emotions. Um, Power and people's hierarchy or the group think makes emotions contagious in terms of the emotional state. And then we have the people do a quick reset, simple breathing and breath, which is really core to Black EQ. Breath is where it starts. Without breath, we can't have the words, we can't have the thoughts. So it's important to get ourselves deactivated. And then the last part of that sequence is based on what you shared in the app. Now here are 3 Adinkra symbols from the Akan proverbs that may be helpful for you to think about. And here are a couple African proverbs that might help you think through. And so imagine now you get a whole different language with different words to give you advice, but those language differences in those words are from your home. They're
Yeah.
not from somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so part of creating like some of the tools that I want to use is to really get people to understand this is happening on a daily basis. This is going on a lot of times. And so it's okay to take out 3 minutes, 5 minutes, get yourself back together before you have to go in and do it the rest of your day. And so I'm trying to bring in things that are daily practices that are simple. That's why also music is featured. Besides it being a big part of Afrocentric culture or traditions, it's important to understand that music has healing properties. The power of music on your brain and neuroplasticity, the power of music on your body somatically in terms of your mood and regulation of different body parts, your heart, your lungs, digestion system. Music is a medicine, it's a healing, and it's a practice you can do. And the practice of making music, when you get into that part of you, now you're actually doing things to extend the opportunities for how long you feel a different way and regulate yourself in a different way because you immerse yourself in this process. And when we do it together, it's just like that's why there's usually nobody fighting at a cool concert because we're watching the concert. Like who gonna get mad at Frankie Beverly Mays? Like why would you be mad then? Like it says happy feelings everywhere.
Uh,
you know, OJ's, people all aboard the love train. I want to get on. Can we get when the next train coming? That sounds amazing. I'm gonna get on a train and talk about my problems? Nah. What the train doing that thing? Cookouts, all that. And I think for me, a lot of it came from the role music played in my house, the way it played in my community. I live in a community that, if somebody's barbecuing, that might start a party for like 5, 6 houses. Oh, you doing that? I got some stuff in the freezer. Oh, I got some
uh-huh.
ice cream. I can make some sherbet. Oh, I'll go back to the store and get some more burgers. Hey, get some rib tips too while you're there. Like, and then the whole time this Magic 108 that's in St. Louis is playing. And it's playing the old stuff, playing the new stuff. And that was my growing uppance. It was always surrounded by music. My mom made us take music lessons. My mom was, we say musician. We're not a that was her job, but she played in church, and helped with the youth choirs and those kind of things. She sang. My father could sing, and had perfect pitch, and only could hear out of one ear. It was hilarious. And I did not inherit that trait, so I don't know what happened. I got 2 ears. I hear very well, but he was so like music was like embedded to my experience at a young age. And when hip hop came out, like it was just hard. Picture me walking down the street without some orange headphones and a Sony Walkman. You can probably very rarely find a picture like that because I was plugged in.
Yeah. And I have a few more questions for you. One being, um, give us an example of when someone comes to you or comes into your world, kind of where are they in terms of like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with right now, and what you offer is exactly kind of what
Mhm.
I need or what I've been looking for.
Yeah, I think that the way that our society has set up the workplace, when we look at globally, how disengagement is, an all-time high, emotional regulation is at all-time low, and incivility is increasing, according to Sherm. And you can go on and on about burnout and experiencing different kind of predatory or bias or not belonging things that happen in our world. And then we have a whole epidemic of loneliness in our society of, that we have not recovered from, COVID, as people point to a lot of it. We were fractured anyway, but not fractured further. And now we live in these avatar communities online with each other, and we don't actually spend time with each other. You
You know,
know, we like in one of my lyrics, my song, I say like we cosplay and being human, but we don't know how to master the craft. And so we forgot. And so a lot of people who come to me, and it's white, black, different people. Um, it was funny to say it out loud. Most of my clients are not black, so that's the other funny. So that's the other part to say it out loud. That mindset, feel set, heal set, skill set is for anybody. You
yeah,
know, the sacred virtues for anybody. Look at yourself, your community, your ancestors, nature, systems, and futures for anybody. So that's it. But a lot of people who come to me, women and people of color, it's like they feel a certain way in the workplace. They feel the idea of imposter syndrome, or they experiencing, misogyny or misandry because of who they are, and they're experiencing these things. And I usually first start with not with their world, but with them.
mhm.
Like when you grew up, what ideas did you hear about yourself? When did you feel the most powerful? When did you feel the most in control? And when is the time where you felt like you're at ease and you can engage in the world? And we start sifting through those memories, people have this experience of, wow, they haven't really had much of that. you
You're
know,
like ease, peace. What you
peace.
talking about?
Exactly. and and so in my growing up, if I say this is growing up is important, is that I think having parents that were so much in the helping profession and having grandparents that were very religious, but not like in the Bible thumping way, but like it ain't like it's not a question of are we going to overcome. It's like we are going to overcome, and Jesus is going to help you. Like this is what's going to happen. And so because of that, I had a bunch of positive experiences in the hood. People don't. That's the depth of the vision. That's the depth in the vision. Yeah, there was plenty of bad ones. I choose not to focus on those. I focus on the ones that were helpful because that's a choice.
Yeah, for
It's a
sure.
choice. And when people start talking about imposter syndrome and feeling out of place, I empathize with them, but that's not really my position because I've always felt good about who I am. And I know I always resisted somebody trying to define me for myself. Only I get to define me. And the best way to define yourself is in relation to others. So how my other peers and how my friends, those people see me, I'm toward the boss. Think actually, for intensive purposes, I tell my clients, you don't have a boss. You work at an institution, it has a mission and a vision. What I suggest you line yourself up with that mission and vision, and you do your best to execute that mission and vision. So if they ask you to leave, they ask you to leave because you are upholding the mission and vision. Keep 100. I ain't got time to mess around with what you like or don't like and how you want to experience me. I really don't even care about those things. I
Mhm.
care about the people we serve and how we're going to become a better human being through this practice, and how we can get better every day in opportunities with people and learn from my mistakes, grow, be humble to say you're sorry when you need to atone for yourself, be willing to do actions to make sure that happens, and keep it moving. Like we're taught in many ways to dwell in these spaces of oppression and the dialogue about what's keeping people down. I'm interested in what's keeping people up.
Yep.
And part of my growing up was that Africa was a beautiful place in my mind my entire life. And so in my mind, I came from the cradle of civilization. And in my mind, we are the people who created this. All population emanate from us. And in my mind, we have so many knowledge of our people and what they have taken and borrowed and haven't brought back. Why would I feel some kind of way at work? Are you kidding me? Now, there's things that go with that. If you take my slant on life, you better be prepared. So when you walk in the room, and that's one of the practical tools I tell people. I prepare for every room and space I'm in. Just like I'm gonna play a game, I was an athlete, or if I play an instrument, I'm gonna practice. I'm gonna be doing my drills all week before I get into the performance. So when I get time to perform, I'm ready to go. And I think a lot of times people, as it's one of the first leadership tenets in terms of Black EQ, a simple way is translated leadership in real time. A lot of my clients can Monday quarterback or reflective hindsight coach themselves after a situation, but they can't do it during the situation.
Moment.
Yeah, and so part of being good in the situation is the preparation to have the presence and the presence of mind, having anticipated the types of responses that people are going to get and have thought through how you want to respond to it yourself. So you can almost play it out as a story with multiple options. And then you go into place, and then if you practice those things, when it happens, you're ready to go real time.
Yep.
And like, if you're a basketball fan and a Knicks fan, I'm not, but I want to give a shout out. You know, the Spurs should be up. They should have just won last night, in my opinion, as a team. They didn't. And what I see constantly in there, and especially in late game, is a poor preparation. And that poor preparation, when they get in pressure, they make poor decisions. Like anything else in life, they didn't think it through. They're reacting. The moment became hectic. They had to react. They weren't thinking through how do we run the clock out. We don't have to take a shot. We could have dribbled around the court and get fouled. That was an option. I'm just saying this because I'm a sports fan. I couldn't believe the Knicks won last night. But it's a good metaphor for preparation into real time. And you see a young team that's 22 years old. They're skilled and they've trained. But how many times you heard the cliche, Jordan, any sport, like you don't know until you lose when you're supposed to think you win. That gives you the motivation, understanding, the mindset to, when I get back here, now I understand what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to limit the get back tos for people. I'm trying to let's go into this knowing what it already is. Let's not be surprised by, this person said this, or this kind of thing exists in the organizational culture, or this thing happened in my community. No, you pay attention and be looking around. You know what's going on. Then prepare yourself properly. And Black EQ is trying to help you do that.
This is this is so good. When I talk to people about strategy, they always think I'm talking about, or they shouldn't say that always. They question if I'm asking them to be manipulative. I'm like, no, I'm actually not asking you to be manipulative. I'm asking you to be strategic. And by
Yes.
strategic meaning, I'm asking you to think about different options or different potential outcomes that might happen as a result of you doing something or
Yeah.
not doing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of just walking in with one you know,
Mm-hmm.
one way of operating. Now you have five, right?
Yeah.
Depending on how the conversation is gonna gonna
Yeah.
go. And that it's really kind of um amazing to see how much that isn't uh, how much that isn't kind of encouraged in
Uh-huh.
people. All right.
Yeah.
If they have a good manager or a good person around them, then the person is talking to them about those
Mm-hmm.
types of
Yeah.
conversations and kind of that way of thinking. But if they don't, they're like, this is just how I respond. So I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna respond, we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna see what's gonna happen. Maybe I'll get fired, maybe I won't, maybe I'll get
Mm-hmm.
into a fight with the person, maybe I won't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you are putting a lot on the table for this one interaction, and it doesn't sound like you have a backup plan. So that
Exactly.
sounds like a bad combination and a bad plan to me. And I
That's
so
that's keeping it real going wrong. That's a modern episode of keeping it real going wrong. If you want to do that that way, and, and I think this is the thing that people uh, may misunderstand, but I want to say this very clearly. Um, Relationships are important, and I feel like I try to advise my clients to don't make your relationship in a moment of controversy. Do your prep work of the relationship, because even as sometimes outspoken I may have been in my life and may have rubbed some of those people the wrong way, I've always tried to have a relationship with people. And like I was at an institution once, and I won't name the institution, but the president was mad at me because of something I said. And what I said was true in the sense that I was saying we did this hiring process and there wasn't a lot of diversity in the hiring process to choose from. And I'm just saying like that lack of feeling of diversity just leads to the outcomes of, well, we can't find anybody, blah blah blah. So I somebody heard me say something about that, and then it got weaponized in his company, and he sent me a message to come see him. I came to see him, and he told me, you know, was up, and I said, I can understand that perspective. I want to continue this dialogue. When can you and your wife come over to my house for dinner? And I'm in a little apartment with tray tables. I ain't got no table. I made her one of my favorite meals my great grandma used to make: corn and crisp chicken, green beans, and rice pilaf. But I bought the rolls. Um, but I put them in the oven. My dad got a good recipe on that, but that take a while, and I don't know the man like that. So I was putting. I had already did some home cooking, and we sat down there and had a meal. And at the end of the meal, he was like, "I didn't expect this." I'm like, "Yeah, because you heard what I said, which I'm not sure you heard exactly what I said in the context of what you're saying it, but you also didn't hear all the other things, that wonderful things people could say about me as well." And so to dispel that, I invited him over. And people are like, "What's wrong with you? You had the meeting with the president in your house with tray tables?" Yeah, that's what I can afford at the time I'm living. Had a weight bench in the dining room. I mean, like it was like a house like Baby Boy or something. I mean, it was like that.
yeah,
But the spirit and generosity, my parents and grandparents are always talking about, build relationships. And just because people you don't agree on something, don't mean you can't have a relationship with people. And I wholeheartedly believe that. I mean, I ain't like all my teammates, but I love them. And if
yeah.
anybody mess with them, then that's problems.
I I I really always encourage people to use the people and the relationships that they have the most contention in to be their greatest teachers, right? And
Yeah.
less about winning the person over. If you do
No.
that, that's just a plus, but more around like how do you not um, isolate yourself
Mm-hmm.
or isolate people who have a particular uh, personality trait, right? Or
Yeah.
whose values differ than yours, because you're gonna interact with thousands of people in your lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not always going to be around people that you like or people you want to be around, but you can be human with them.
Yeah.
That it's really not that complicated. I remember back in it must have been 2016.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time Trump ran for president, and my manager, mind you, my best manager that I've
Mm-hmm.
had across my career, uh, he was like, "I appreciate you so much because despite the fact that you disagree with me, you have never disparaged me. You never said
Mm-hmm.
anything." I was like, "Dude, you check on me." when I'm sick. Like you, and you were making sure that I have what I need to be successful in my job here. You're helping me think about my future, my career. You ask about my partner, my ex at that time. You ask about my family. Like you're just treating me like a human. So
Hmm.
I don't have to agree with all aspects of who you
Hmm.
are for me to see you as a human being and for you to see me as a human being. We don't have to have conversations around it
Yeah.
because it might not be productive, but I I don't have to be disrespectful and you don't have to be disrespectful and we can get along and have fun and laugh and do all of these
Hmm.
things. And so I that was such a great lesson for me
Yeah.
that it allowed me to have an example of what it can look like for my clients because when they can do that, one, the relationships are just a lot more
Hmm.
fulfilling
Yeah. Definitely.
because they still get to know all of the
Hmm.
nuances and complexities and
Yes.
quirkiness of another human being,
Definitely.
and they have practice, they have skills because they're having to be in the tension of like, how do I have a conversation with somebody I disagree with versus running out of the conversation or cussing them out or not talking to them at all and going silent, um, because that ends up just shutting down your world more and more and more. And when
Hmm.
I think about life maximization,
Yeah.
right, it's expansion. When I think
Hmm.
about Black EQ, it's expansion.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I love how all of this is playing into how do you become a more nuanced human being, a
Hmm.
more joyful
Yeah.
human being, a more sophisticated and intelligent human being. And that doesn't necessarily mean um educated. Some of
Hmm.
the smartest people I know didn't finish high school and didn't go
Yeah.
to college.
Oh yeah.
And so I love having those conversations with them because they teach me something completely different
Yeah.
than my peers that I went to school with or than my family members who went to college. And I appreciate it because it gives me a different kind of intelligence
Hmm.
beyond the books and beyond
Yes.
the classroom.
And I think that's an important part of what Black EQ is, just another form of intelligence. And so adding it to your life is not going to make you, somehow this person that nobody wants to talk to or deal with. I have relations with people I disagree with all the time, and I tell people my critique is my critique, my analysis is my analysis, but our relationship is our relationship. I mean, I just posted today an article on my LinkedIn that saying no doesn't mean you're saying no to a relationship, and it's a message for like people like ourselves who are entrepreneurs, small business owners, etc. And oftentimes you get the message about collaboration, but then the collaboration becomes hard because when you only operate at a certain scale, it's hard to like find the right partners. But regardless of like you and I, what we ever choose to do together, the relationship is what's important. If I say I can't do this thing or you say you can't do this thing, doesn't mean we shouldn't be in a relationship. It just means you can't do this thing and you can't do that thing. I think people sometimes personalize the whole no, don't understand we don't have to lose relationships to be ourselves. And we don't have to worry about it if you focus on the relationship itself.
Yeah,
Because the no becomes easier when y'all cool. The
yeah.
cooler you are, the no is like, well, you know what? I don't even think we should do that one. I'm not really feeling that one. And you're like, okay, cool. But when people you don't know, you can't dance around it, send me a proposal, talk to me, and all that. Oh, just cut it in the bud, man. If you ain't feeling it or you don't see a line with it, just don't do it. It's okay. But I think we have hard time setting those boundaries in our life, and we have because I think we get these messages that we have to be all these other things to everybody else. The first thing you got to be is true to yourself. That should be the thing you do. The first thing in the morning, last thing in the night. And if
Yeah.
you do that well, now, to the education part, I will say this. I think the education part is so crazy because I would say information, because there's such a lack of information that people hold about Africa. So a lot of the things, like one of the things I build in Black EQ is to do like a reflection. When you've heard things say Black and African, well, how do you feel about that? When you've seen things go, in life, do you go toward those things or you question them? Like, I want you to like figure out where you are with your Afrocentricity and how the dark trope that has been, proliferated throughout the diaspora in all Western world, that don't apply to you because none of that is real. That's how I make sense of it. It's not true. And I have the information that says it's not real. So
Um,
you can say it 100 times to me, it's never going to register because I'm not going to debate facts. Facts are facts. Opinions are opinions. And we know what those things do to us if we when we assume.
Yep.
So like when you know who you are as a person, you know where you're from, you have the facts, you're steadfast in your ability to grow, you want to learn, you want to build capacity, you want to build relationships. That's the person you want to be that person. And then don't let nobody else turn you around. Like the gospel said, don't let nobody turn you around.
Mhm. Or for people who are interested in doing some work with you, like, can you talk a little bit about that? Is it one-on-one coaching? Is it workshops? Do you have something coming up
Yeah,
soon?
so Black EQ coaching is going to be officially available come July 1. The website stuff, you doing the final little tweaks. Some beginning courses, some self-paced courses will be available. There will be a online community. But next Friday, Juneteenth, we're having a Black EQ listening session where I come out and talk about Black EQ, its origins, how I created it, and I share a little of the music that I've created, the soundtrack for Black EQ. It's going to be the curriculum. It's going to be a thing that motivates you. It's going to be your mood enhancer, your self-regulation. It wants to be all those things. And I'm trying to make some good music first and then make sure it has a strong message. Stuff that you can rock your head to, bob your body to, feel and move. And I'm just looking forward to just having this conversation about this Afrocentric way of being and incorporating music. Like I have no reason to ever be unhappy in life because regardless of how other people feel about it, I know that people are going to feel connected to it because the consumption of Black music globally. Now just imagine with a better message. And no hate toward those, no hate to anybody who's oh, your message is better than mine. No, I'm just saying better in the sense of promoting Afrocentric thought, trying to not necessarily glorify all the bad things of a community. Like I can write
Mhm.
a rap song about being tough or whatever, but I choose not to want to believe. I don't want to believe that the person that I am right now, that might be the
Mhm.
person I was at a certain age, but that's not the person I am now, and that's the person I'm trying to become. So I'm trying to write the music for the future, not for the now. But in any, I can't wait. 12 p.m. Eastern on LinkedIn. You find me. I'll be my little link on my website. Yeah, and we're gonna do the thing. And it's a little
Yeah.
hour. I mean, I'm gonna present Black EQ, its components, its parts, blah blah blah. Talk a little about what we're trying to build in terms of a global movement. We're trying to launch in different places around the globe. So I think Black Canada Summit, looking to do some university in the Caribbean, looking to do some in West Africa with my, a guy who wrote Dr. Online, who wrote the forward for the book that will come out of Black EQ next year. He works with the African Association University. So like I'm 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 happy because I found the thing that I want to do in life and the experiences in life to weave them together in a way that makes sense as a leadership framework, but also a lifestyle. For the coach, to me, I need to live these practices or I shouldn't talk about them. And I'm excited to live a practice where I'm making music, being creative, having dialogues, bringing people together, and let's create collective change. That sounds like a good day, a good life. And I'm ready
Yeah.
for it, the rest of it.
It's funny. I always I always talk about people's spark or their life, and that theme has been coming up a lot in these past couple of weeks, just for myself and my own reflections around
Hmm.
like, am I in my spark today? Am
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
leading from it? Am I communicating from it? Am I building from it? My body of work, my business, all of these things. And when I do, one, I notice how it feels for me is like very light and
Hmm.
is this, right? And when people interact with it, I see the light switch come on in them. And so
Hmm.
I think about myself like being the candle, right? I'm just kind of leaning over and touch my wick to their wick and they're lighting up and it
Hmm.
like they pass it on.
Yeah.
But sometimes we can knock out our own spark or it gets
Hmm.
knocked out from us
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
from interacting with the world. And when I listen to you talk about Black EQ and the listening session and your music, like I just see your spark come on and it just expands and gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So I am excited not only for the event next week, because if you have not heard Isaac's music, go bop. You will have such a wonderful
I
experience.
appreciate that. Yeah. But yeah, you got to come in. You got to bop with it. You can't sit there.
Yeah, yeah. If you try and sit there,
I
then
might call you out.
you you have to be numb to not
Yeah.
be moving when you start hearing the music. But like I'm excited about what's happening for you and the collective globally, what's happening with the book,
Mhm.
kind of what's happening with your framework. So congratulations, man.
No, thank you very much. I mean, I am. I
Congratulations.
think you make an important point about life and work. I think there's so many times where my spark did go out because I was spending so much time supporting other people, resist doing things, resist the systems of oppression as I should. But when you overindulge in that, and you don't make room for the pendulation, you don't make room for the healing, and you don't make room for the feeling, because of what it does, how it incapacitates you or takes your energy, extracts from you. So part of Black EQ is not. I have been parts of this way my whole life, but I've also had the dark parts of it, and this just took me like when people say 10,000 hours. It's like it took me 10,000 hours to know enough about Black history, to know enough about music and practice, to know enough about being a business person, leader, all those things to get to this point. So some people get there quicker. That's why your journey timeline is your journey timeline. It's not mine. I'm not trying to rush this, but it feels good to be in a place where like, oh, I see all the connections to what has I've done so far. I see how the experiences I've had have enriched me, and I see this future that is just prosperous.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm talking about prosperous in the sense of world lookout. When the Black people across the diaspora get on the same page and love on each other and support each other, it's going to change. It's going to change the world.
That's the conversation. I'm not saying any more than that.
Okay.
Join him on the 19th. You said on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'll be looking at my LinkedIn. I will put out some fillers in my Isaac Carter LinkedIn. So ISSACM Carter, the only one that exists because my mom spelled my name with two S's. So you're not going to get confused. Coaching Imperative and Black EQ. And check out the articles I got loaded up. I've been trying to prime people, giving them a little information about music and how it affects the brain, how it affects the body, all the kind of things so we can start thinking about things. I'm going to put out a post next week with the pendulation, the app that's on my website, so people can start practicing. So when we get in there on Friday, we can get to it.
Yes. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. I am grateful for uh I don't remember if it was Elena or somebody else who connected us,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna have to thank her again for bringing you into my world, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yes, I look forward to talking with you again soon, and we're going to do some stuff together at some point. I know, and I appreciate your time. And I need to say too, like I don't. I want people to know because I wasn't in many parts of life. We are often not talked about for what we can do or the possibilities that people see in you. You're
Hmm.
judged often by what people see on the surface. And I would say with you, one of the you our relationship, how it started, was part of my own journey. Kind of said like my last step that I had in my head, like how do I be vulnerable and share something that's so intrinsic to who I am as a person, to share it, to give it out and say here. But I think that's the thing with Black EQ. Like if we are authentic selves and we relate to each other at that level, that's going to be a whole different way for us to relate to each other in the world.
And I honestly think we would have had a different conversation had we stayed in the business conversation that
Mm-hmm.
day, because one, I can talk about business. I like business. I like making
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Of course.
I like talking about people's joy
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much creativity in the world that I know nothing about. I have no kind of access to, or I haven't thought about it in a way. And so your willingness to be vulnerable and share with me, it actually did a number of things. One, my standard of music has changed because now I'm like, it's got to have a bop and it's got to have a positive message, and sometimes you just don't find that all the time.
It's hard. It's hard to consume. I mean, I'm a fan of public. Like, I go Public Enemy, Boogie Down Productions, Rakim. So even NWA. I mean, like some of the messages, whatever. But they ask the messages you can rock with.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
yeah, I appreciate that because I think the thing for me is like as a person who teaches hip hop course, I, for decades, it's always interesting to hear that person bring that piece of music in that you've never heard before that changes your mind on what possible. And I remember the first time I heard Lecrae, I was like, oh, that's a different way to say you love Jesus.
yeah.
It just didn't come out directly and say it like a hymn. You put it with some bars. Like, oh, that's a different way. And I think as we engage with each other, we'll be able to find those different ways and open ourselves up to different methodologies and pathways to get to our collective destination. So
I'm
I
on the
thank you.
bus. Yep,
Okay. All
I'm
right.
on the bus.
We will be leaving the station on June 19th. So please come and enjoy.
Oh, thank you. Harriet would be Harriet would be very proud.
Yes, General Tubman, salute to you. If you don't know
All
what
right,
that means, look it up. It's Google. It's worth for Google.
all right, sir. Have a
All
good one.
right. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.